In this video, you will learn how to clean finish your lining to your zipper. Using this method will keep you from having any unfinished seams or edges at the closure of your garment. In this demo, I'll be using this small bodice to show how to clean finish the lining to the zipper. Here I'm pinning the lining to the fashion fabric. Okay, I'm starting from the center front and pinning out in both directions. As I get closer to center back, I'm actually going to stop a few inches away from where my zipper should go in. Here I have a notch, so I'm going to stop about an inch to an inch and a half away from that notch. Okay, that notch is where the zipper is going in, so I need to leave the lining free about an inch to inch and a half away from where it's going to go in. So here we are stitching the lining into the bodice, and I'm coming upon the pin that is about an inch and a half away from where the zipper will go. So that is where I'll stop stitching. And you'll do this on both sides of your garment. Once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and just clip my seam allowance and trim everything out that I don't need, preparing my lining for understitching. Now, with understitching, we don't want to start understitching right where we stopped stitching the lining to the garment. We want to start about an inch or so away from there. Okay, it will make it harder to finish the lining if we start understitching right where we finish stitching the lining to the garment. So I'm going to understitch this whole garment, and then again I'm going to stop about an inch away from where I stopped stitching the lining. And now I'm going to go ahead and press the neckline of this garment. Okay, so I've understitched the whole thing, and now I'm just pressing everything together. The seam allowance of the bodice that is not stitched to the lining, I'm going to press down. Okay, and the same thing with the seam allowance at the neckline of the lining, I'm also going to press down, just as if they had been stitched together. And you'll do that at both sides. And make sure you line them up as well as you can. Again, this is all going to get hand tacked closed later. Now go ahead and apply your zipper. Make sure your lining is out of the way. Again, you would apply this through your whole garment. This is just a small bodice I'm using as an example. Alright, there it is. The zipper's in. Okay, so let's open this up so you can see what it looks like inside. Alright, my zipper's in, and you can see that the lining needs to be clean finished to the edge of the zipper. The first thing we're going to do, though, before we fold back our lining and finish it to the zipper, is we're going to actually whip stitch down the seam allowance at the neckline where the zipper is. That zipper tape is pretty stiff, and it kind of pushes that seam allowance up. So I'm just going to fold the zipper tape out of the way, and then fold the seam allowance down over it. And then with a needle and thread, I'm just going to whip stitch that down, and that will hold it in place. So here we go. So again, we're just going to whip stitch around this. Make sure you just fold that zipper tape down and the seam allowance right over it. And then I'll just catch through the zipper tape and then the two layers that I folded down, and it will just hold that down in place for me. Alright, so you just need about 4, 5, 6 stitches you can tie off. And you'll do this on both sides. Okay, so that's one side down, and then the other one again, fold the tape down out of the way, fold the seam allowance at the neckline over it, and just whip stitch it closed. So now let's attach the lining to the zipper tape. So fold back the lining so that it matches the edge of the zipper tape. You want to line it up right with the center of the zipper tape. If you look, usually zipper tape will have some kind of chevron or other stitching right down the center of it, and that's what we want to line the edge of our lining up with. Okay, so we're going to fold under our lining enough so that it matches up with the center of the zipper tape, clean finishing the lining to the zipper. So you just need to work with your lining and fold it under. The seam allowance at the top by the neckline you want to have up. Okay, so you'll pull that seam allowance on the lining up at the neckline. Then you'll match up and fold under at center back. Okay, so I'm folding back here at center back, and now I'm going to go up here. Okay, I just folded it back towards the top of the zipper and neckline. And now, once it's folded back at the top, I'll fold under the seam allowance at the neckline of the lining. Okay, that gives it a cleaner finish at the back. All right, and you're going to have to adjust it a little bit to get it to fit right. One thing you want to be careful of is not folding too much lining underneath that it's too tight and then wrinkles the front of the garment. Okay, so you want to make sure it's just lining. You want to have a little bit of ease in. So you just want it to have a little bit of ease. Okay, you don't want it to be too tight, and you want the edge of the lining at center back to match up right with the middle of the zipper tape. If it gets too close to the teeth, when you pull the zipper head up, it will catch that lining and stop it from going up and stop you from being able to close the zipper. Okay, so you'll just adjust it starting at the neckline and just pin it as you go. All right, and here you'll see I'm making sure it's not too tight. I want to make sure that the side seam of my lining matches up with the side seam of the outer part of the garment, and just keep adjusting as you go and pin all the way down. Okay, there's the bottom. Alright, now the top at the necklines, make sure that matches up and that the lining at the neckline isn't hanging over the outer part of the garment. You want to make sure it's inside. And now we'll do the other side here. Again, make sure that neckline seam allowance is up, and then start folding under your lining at center back. And again, we're matching it up with the center of the zipper tape, not too close to the teeth. And now I can fold under the seam allowance at the neckline once I've started to figure out the correct length at center back, and I'll pin it in place. And again, I'll just continue this all the way down to the bottom of the zipper. Alright, and there it is. We've now pinned the lining in place, and now we can do some hand stitching to secure it in place. So what we'll do here is we're going to do a hidden slip stitch. I like to double up the thread on my needle unless I'm using really fine fabrics, and I'm just going to first create a loop, and I'm just going through the tape of the zipper, and that's it, and then bring my needle through that loop, and now I'll do a hidden slip stitch. So what I'm going to do is travel down the crease of the lining, and then I'm only going to travel about a ½ inch or so, and then right where I pull out my thread, I'll go right back in and grab a little bit of the zipper tape right behind where I came out of the lining, and then go right back into the lining. Travel a ½ inch, come out, and again I'm just going to grab a little bit of that zipper tape, just a couple threads, right where I came out of the lining. Grab those few threads and then go right back into the lining and travel another ½ inch down the crease of the lining. Okay. Now it's important you want to travel down the crease of the lining because the tension of the thread, when you pull the thread tight, don't pull it too tight that it starts wrinkling your garment, but the tension of the thread will pull that garment tight against the zipper tape. Okay, so you want to travel down the crease of the lining, and you don't want to travel down behind the zipper tape. You're just coming out, grabbing a couple threads of zipper tape, and then going right back in through the crease of the lining. And you'll do that all the way up to the neckline. Okay, now we're getting to the neckline, and we're going to continue doing the same hidden slip stitch, and we're going to continue traveling through the crease of the lining, and instead of the zipper tape catching a few threads on the zipper tape, we'll catch the few threads on the neckline of the fashion fabric. And be careful not to go through to the front of the garment. You're just catching the seam allowance of the outer garment and then traveling right back through into the lining crease. Okay, and we're just going to slip stitch this until we get to where our machine stitching stopped. And so you only have a couple inches at most here to do. Okay, and once you get to the end, go ahead and tie it off, and there you go. We've now clean finished one side of our lining to the zipper. So let's go ahead and do the other side. This side is done the exact same way, except the only difference is we're starting at the neckline and going down. So we'll just do a hidden slip stitch, catching either the neckline of the fashion fabric or the zipper tape, depending where we are, and traveling down the crease of the lining, and we're taking about 1/2 inch stitches. Again, this is the hidden slip stitch we're doing. And once you get to the bottom, go ahead, loop off, tie off, and there we go, it's done. So that's the inside. You can see the lining is all clean finished along the neckline and along the zipper. You can open it up, and that's what it looks like. Alright, and this is what the outside looks like. And that is how you clean finish your lining to your zipper.